what people would get out of coming here is a look at a different, I think again, a different way of developing a space, where the value in the development of the space is a little bit different than the values in a lot of other spaces. But we're at the cutting edge of a lot of environmental and green technology that we've used in the specific, mostly in the Saranac and in the market too, where people can get informed about what it is that is available and how much we really don't need to throw things away. We can actually reuse things. And these spaces are a demonstration of how you can do that and have a space that is really aesthetically pleasing. But other stumbling blocks are, there's always been things that didn't work and that didn't. One of the things in the very beginning when we put together the Saranac was that there was no real expertise in Spokane about green building. A lot of the craftspeople that came in to do the work hadn't really worked on green spaces before, and so they were learning along with us. And a good example of is when we put the floor in the restaurant, which is the Saranac pub now, but at that time it was Isabella's. That's cement floor, and we weren't going to use 100% cement because that's really environmentally devastating. So we were going to use a certain amount of fly ash, but we didn't know how much fly ash. So Ron Peacock, who was the contractor, had pads, I think he actually had them at his house, built with like 20% fly ash, 30% fly ash, and 40% fly ash, because he didn't know how much strength we needed to have. And we wound up using 40% fly ash because it was as solid and as firm and as 100% cement. But we wanted to use as much fly ash as we could, so it was just interesting. Now, 10 years later, or 8 years later, whatever it is, there is a tremendous amount of expertise in Spokane about green building, and I think that our building and the Saranac, the building of the Saranac, was a major player in developing that expertise. It's not like if you come down here, you'll see immediately this is the really, really different. That's not the way that it works. The way that it works is that this is a process that is where the values are different than those that our culture is creating. And I think that those values are connection, community, concern for each other, helping each other, and that's what, and I'm not saying this is the panacea. All I'm saying is that this is the philosophy that we've got, that we're trying to foster here. We tend to throw walls up and protect ourselves, and I think that it's the opposite that ought to happen, is that we ought to take more walls down and come together. And that was my thought as far as starting the community building, thinking that we bring people together, and so they have the opportunity to connect with each other in a networking sort of way. We had two criteria really when we did our charrette early with the Saranac. We wanted to make it really green, and we wanted to make it really, really beautiful. There wasn't anything about this block when we started. When I started, it was, in fact, I was driving just down Main, and I looked at the building that Dan Spalding owns across the street, and I thought, oh, that's a nice building. So I stopped the car and I walked over and I said, who owns this building, to this person standing? Well, it's Dan, and he actually owns the building. And so he said, well, I'm not going to sell, but the guy across the street is looking for a buyer. And I don't even think that the community building was on the market at that time. I can't remember for sure. And so I went across the street and talked to the guy who owned the building, and we made a deal, and then we just started developing. And then we bought the next building that houses the daycare now, and then the Saranac, and then the warehouse, and so on. So there wasn't anything specific about this block initially. It was just, once we got started, it really worked. And then we got the Goodyear store across the street, which turned into, has turned into the co-op, food co-op. And that, so it just all sort of developed. But when I started, I wasn't interested in this particular space. It just turned out really great. Where are we headed? That's a really good question. I don't know. I have really no idea. I only know that we're headed in the right direction.